Which one stands out to you as being the most important?
There's so much here, and one of the ones that doesn't get enough attention or headlines, I think, are the improvements on people-to-people ties. I mean, you have India, the largest democracy in the world. You have the United States, the oldest. And we have young populations that want to grow, develop, educate. They want to innovate. They want to make a difference in the world, whether that's on climate change science or clean energy technology or artificial intelligence, space, cyberspace. And these people-to-people ties are so critical, and what you saw today were opportunities to grow those programs, to improve exchanges, whether they're educational or otherwise, between our two peoples, between the American people and the Indian people. So I don't think that got enough headlines. But look, there were other really key deliverables. The co-production of GE jet engines in India. That's a big deal, not just for jobs in India, but also here for the United States. India is going to buy some more MQ-9s, which will improve their military capabilities. We signed on to more investments in each other's economies. India signed on to the Artemis Accords, so space exploration between our two countries will improve. I could go on and on. I mean, I've seen a lot of these, and there hasn't been too many other bilateral visits that I've seen that have created as long a list of deliverables and as specific as this one.
Admiral Kirby, let's take some of the things you mentioned one by one. I'll start with the GE F414 jet engine deal. A few years ago, it would have been quite inconceivable for the United States to be agreeing to transfer this kind of sensitive technology to India. India isn't a formal alliance partner of the United States, is unlikely ever to be part of a formal alliance of any kind. What then do you think facilitates this kind of a deal, and what signal are you trying to send? Because for a long time India was dependent on the USSR and later Russia for weapon purchases. Is this an effort to try and wean India away from the Soviet-Russian grasp?
It's not an effort against any other country. It's an attempt to show how much this strategic partnership with India really matters to both our nations, quite frankly, and you heard President Biden say this, to the whole world. I mean, India is becoming an increasing exporter of security, not just in South Asia, but in the Indo-Pacific and elsewhere. So, I mean, it's really important, we think, that they have access to this kind of technology and this co-production capability to improve not only their capabilities in civil and military air, but again, in the creation of additional jobs.
India and the United States now do more joint exercises than India does with any other country. Is that something that you see increase in time to come, attempts at interoperability, especially in the Indo-Pacific region?
It could. I mean, there were no additional training events announced today, but you're right. We have a terrific regimen of training and exercises with the Indian military. Those help not only our individual militaries get better and more operationally ready, but also improves our interoperability with one another, and so we'll look to see if that needs to be expanded.
One of the things the French were concerned about when the Rafale deal was being negotiated was about the ability of Hindustan Aeronautics, the Indian company, to be able to manufacture as per Rafale standards. Is that something you've satisfactorily addressed, the capacity? One of the reasons we're frankly having to come to you is because Hindustan Aeronautics couldn't build the Kaveri engine by themselves. It was heavy, unwieldy. Now, of course, this is a big respite for the light combat aircraft project. Is that something which is of concern to you, because you've been a military man yourself?
Well, I mean, we wouldn't make a deal like this, and we wouldn't be so proud of this if we didn't have full confidence that India will be able to manage that co-production capability and manage the delivery of those jet engines as appropriate.
Okay, let's now talk a bit about the killer predator drone technology. This, Admiral Kirby, is something that India has been desperately wanting to arm itself with. Is this a pure play business transaction at full commercial rates, or does this too have some kind of a component of transfer of technology inbuilt into it?
This is basically the delivery of additional MQ-9 drones to the Indian military. It's done through the Foreign Military Sales Program. That's what this is about. But these drones will have a terrific additive capability to the Indian military. We believe that they will find them useful and capable for their own self-defense needs.
The President was asked this question about China, and I think the message from the Biden administration was that this isn't aimed at China. But,
that's right.
You know, the fact is that Beijing's noticing the ever deepening ties between India and the United States. Is China really the unsaid gorilla in the room in some senses, sir?
This was not about China, as President Biden said. Look, India has concerns over China's activities. in the region and beyond, and so do we. And you heard the president, he spoke very frankly about that. And the two leaders did have a chance to exchange notes and perspectives on the challenge that is posed by the PRC. But that's not why this visit was so important. That's not why this bilateral relationship is considered such a strategic one for our two countries. When you look at the challenges that we're facing around the world, the Indian people and the American people have so much capacity to help solve those problems together. Innovation, technology, engineering, science, whether it's climate change or, as I said, artificial intelligence. The capacity to solve those transnational problems really do reside in this relationship. It's really, as President Biden said, the importance of this relationship goes well beyond our two countries. It really does have the potential to be a global force for good.
Let's spend a moment on the initiative for critical and emerging technologies, Admiral Kirby, because that seems to be one of the linchpins of this emerging relationship. Where does ISED go from here, outside of what we've seen, the conversation now on for about a year, in terms of actual deliverables on the table? What do you think ISED, what should people expect from ISED?
I think what they should expect is that coming out of this visit, we're going to continue to work with our Indian partners and partners around the world too, to improve our approach on ISED.
What did you make of the impact Prime Minister Modi had? You were part of the extended bilateral this morning. What did you make of him being at the south lawns of the White House, and just the kind of atmospherics that we saw?
Well, you could tell the warm welcome, clearly. I mean, there's millions and millions of Indian Americans here in the United States, and you could just see the energy here that exists between our two democracies and the importance of this relationship. It was a warm welcome, but more critically than that, they were warm, cordial, constructive discussions about very important, critical issues across, as I said, the spectrum, whether it's private or public sector issues. And so there's an awful lot that our two countries can and will do going forward. And as President Biden said, and I think, again, you can see this reflected in the deliverables, this is going to be the defining partnership for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
You've been saying that, and that gives people in India a lot of hope, because the Prime Minister spoke of the hesitance of the past and doing away with that, and really building ties with the United States much deeper, much stronger in the time to come. Last question about the G20 summit in September. The American president will be coming to India. Have you had an opportunity to find out about his thinking as he builds up to this big visit to India in September?
Well, we're very much looking forward to the G20 summit. There'll be, as you can imagine, a spate of issues to be discussed, not least of which is the ongoing war in Ukraine, and we're grateful for India's presidency and leadership of that.
Is that something that came up? Ukraine, India buying oil from Russia, which has been a bit of a thorn in Washington, D.C., and several congressmen especially speaking against
The two leaders did have a chance to talk about what's going on in Ukraine, but I'll leave it there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you taking our time, Admiral Kirby. We read so much about everything that you've been saying and doing, and appreciate you taking our time and speaking to us. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pleasure having you. That's Admiral John Kirby at the National Security Council, the man in charge of strategic communication and one of the senior most officials of the Biden administration, joining us here on India Today for this exclusive conversation with video journalist Kirpal Singh. This is Rahul Kanwal at the White House, signing off for India Today.